9:04 a.m. Item 2 is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Dodds, all in favor? That brings us to our decision items. 3.1, the proposed 2018 final fee schedule. Just to confirm, the Total Works Fitness fee schedule is not part of 3.1, correct? I hope not at all. So we will go to Mr. McMillan, 3.1, proposed 2018 final fee schedule.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Thank you for having me today. Yes, in conjunction with the 2018 budget considerations, administration and all the town facilities have respectively reviewed their fees for the calendar year. A significant change from the interim budget has been the ECDC is enrolled in the province's early learning and child care program, wherein fees are then defined as $550 a month for full-time care and $25 a day for one-off care from the period of May 2018 through April 2019. The proposed 2018 fee schedule reflects the town's overall goals to provide affordable services while balancing fiscal responsibility and, where possible, achieving cost recovery. Therefore, administration presents the attached 2018 final fee schedule for council consideration and adoption for implementation on May 9, 2018. The final fee schedule is presented in support of the 2018 final operating and capital budget and will be published to the town's website in conjunction with the 2018 final operating and capital budgets. So as I said earlier, the only major changes to the ECDC fees, there were a couple other minor additions and subtractions, but nothing of material content. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to.
Do we have any questions of administration or motions presented? Seeing none, is there someone that would like to make a motion on this proposed 2018 final fee schedule? Councillor Bucks.
I move the council approve the proposed 2018 final fee schedule as presented.
I move the council approve the proposed 2018 final fee schedule as presented.
Great. Is there any debate on this motion? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the proposed 2018 final fee schedule as presented. All in favor? That is carried. And that brings us to 3.2, proposed 2018 Total Works Fitness Center final fee schedule. Councillor Peebles.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to item 3.2, Total Works Fitness Center fee schedule, I'll declare a pecuniary interest, and this time I must abstain from any discussion or voting on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Peebles. Councillor Peebles. All right. Thank you. Again, I will call on Mr. McMillan for item 3.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll do the full spiel again. But yes, basically we reviewed these fees again, but we determined there should be no changes from what was passed in the interim budget back in December. Again, these fees are reviewed to balance fiscal responsibility and cost recovery as much as possible. And we therefore present this for council consideration and adoption for implementation as of May 9th. And these will be, this supports the operating capital budget and will be published on the website with the budget documentation.
right, thank you for that. Is there any questions for administration before a motion is made? Seeing none, does someone like to make a motion? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. I move the council approve the proposed 2018 final Total Works Fitness Center fee schedule as presented.
All right, thank you for that. Is there any debate on this motion? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the proposed 2018 Final Works Fitness Center fee schedule as presented. All in favor? That is carried. All right, this brings us to 3.3, the mill rate bylaw 2018-6-F. And again, Mr. McMillan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, each year the town sets its mill rates and required to meet operational capital expenditures for the town. Mill rate, also referred to as the millage rate, is a figure representing the amount per $1,000 of assessed value of the property, which is used to calculate the amount of property tax a rural owes. All residential and commercial property in Drake Valley is assessed, and the mill rate factors are multiplied by the taxable assessment. You can kind of think about mill rates in terms of a meter stick. You know how there's 100 centimeters in a meter, so 1 centimeter equals 1%. Well, there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter, and that's the same thing here. It's all very metric. So when you think of mill rates, just think of 1,000. Mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F is being presented for first, second, and third reading at today's council meeting. The adoption of the mill rate supports the tax levy requirements of the 2018 operating and capital budget. Council is being asked to approve the mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F as presented. To facilitate the tax notices being issued in a timely manner, council is being asked to give all three readings for the mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F today. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Is there any questions of administration before I ask for a motion? Seeing none, is there someone that would like to make a motion on this? Councillor Gamada.
I would like to make a motion that council gives first reading to mill rate bylaw 2018/06/F as presented. Thanks.
All right, is there any debate on the presented motion? Councillor Butts.
Councillor Gamada, would you accept a friendly amendment to change the mill rate on commercial taxes? Maybe Kevin can, I don't know how to word it, in order to reflect the average business taxes staying the same as opposed to a slight decline, as previously discussed.
You can certainly do a recalculation given the changes would affect not only the operating budget but also about half the mill rates as presented. We would have to do a recalculation and represent the bylaw on a whole rather than just pass a single amendment verbally.
Councillor Gamada.
Yeah, the reason that I support this motion on the floor is that when you compare the mill rates for commercial with other municipalities around, our mill rate is higher for businesses, commercial properties compared to residential average. So I think it's, in my opinion, is good to give a little bit of a break for businesses, for commercial properties.
Councillor Butts.
Can I ask a question of administration?
Sure.
Kevin, could you please speak to the differential between property taxes for residences and businesses? We saw from the auditor last meeting that residential taxes in Drake Valley are average and business taxes are higher than average. Your predecessor said that business taxes are based more on profitability, so could you speak speak to the fact of whether we're taxing our businesses more or they're simply more profitable and thus have higher taxes?
Thank you. Yes, well, property value in the residential side is much more highly based, just purely on a comparison to the market rate for what they're sold for. So there is no accommodation made for the profitability of those inhabiting said building. And yes, as far as the commercial assessments go, the profitability of the businesses contained does play a high factor in what the assessed value of the properties are, as that all factors into that calculation. And as far as that goes, yes, for an equalized assessment, Drayton Valley does trend very high for equalized assessment because it being a resource town, you do tend to see very high revenues per square footage compared to other municipalities within Alberta. So yes, we do tax commercial quite highly based on their equalized assessment, and that is due to the profitability of the companies themselves. However, the mill rates are based on just the proportion of the market values, or is tax based on the assessment value, which does not necessarily factor directly into the profitability of the business. I hope that answers the question.
Councillor Gamana?
Kevin, could you explain that the calculation that you're doing, is it dependent on the revenues, last calendar year, or was it like previous calendar years prior to that?
All assessments within the system are based on the market values as of July 1st, 2017. So all these taxes are based on last July's numbers. As far as the municipal goes, the educational is prepared by the province. That's based on equalized assessments, which is another year older and has been audited against market values and adjusted as much as 5% give or take based on market values relative to other municipalities we share services with. It's apropos to nothing in this case as far as the municipal goes, but I hope that explains how the calculations are made.
So, from my standpoint, I'll give you Councillor Wheeler. I'm also in favor of the motion that was originally presented. Before I get into that, so a friendly amendment has been suggested. What process is needed in order to, does Councillor Gamana have to accept it, or?
Yes, it would be Councillor Gamana's decision whether or not to accept the friendly amendment. There is no vote on that because it's not an amending motion.
Okay. So, can we have some debate on it, or does he have to either accept or deny the request for the amendment at this time?
There can be debate on the friendly amendment suggestion before Councillor Gamana
Okay.
chooses.
All right, so I will quickly give my little 2 cents, and I will look to other councillors as well. So the original, the motion that was made was for essentially commercial properties to see a slight reduction in their property taxes because of the drop in the educational requisition from the Alberta government. And it may not be that consequential of a number, but I think if we sit here and talk about being open for business, as we often do, and I look at the mill rates comparing Drayton Valley to many other communities like us in our vicinity, and we have the highest mill rates for commercial properties. And that doesn't tell me that Drayton Valley is pro-business if we are taxing our commercial properties at a significantly higher rate than we are residential, and for the most part other communities. If we only have to look to Brazeau County, and yes, I know the financial situation of Brazeau County is different than the town of Drayton Valley, but what is stopping a business from moving just outside of the borders of Drayton Valley and setting up a location where they can save 20 or 30% on their property taxes? And it is can be a significant amount of money, and people talking about profitability of businesses, I can assure you that the last 2 years, there's not a lot of businesses that have been profitable in Drayton Valley. And so we keep raising the mill rate and the taxes for those businesses at a time when they are not becoming profitable. So then when they are profitable, we just increase it more. I'm not quite sure what it is. So the argument for profitability, I think, is completely lost on me. And I'm sure my accountant can contest to my local business and the lack of profitability for sure. So I am in 100% in favor of keeping the motion as originally presented by Mr. Gamana and moving forward from there, because we need to start, I think, looking at what we are doing for our commercial properties, and they are carrying a high, I think, an unproportionate share of the property taxes, and I understand that they are at times making more money than residents, and I'm not saying that the residents of Drayton Valley haven't felt the pinch of a recession either, but if we run a business out of town and we lose 20 jobs, we're affecting 20 people. And so we have to also look at the fact that businesses employ the residents of Drayton Valley. It's not an us versus them. It's an ecosystem that's working in conjunction with one another. And if we lose businesses, we also lose residents and we lose jobs. So that's my take on that. Councilor Wheeler.
Thank you. For me, this discussion needs to be holistic. I think we're talking about school requisition not being quite as much as it was last year, and there is a potential for us to give both residents and businesses a 0% tax increase, but to still use that revenue for the town. And I think if you're going to be fair and holistic, then you need to either look at giving it to both or not to both. We're talking about the residents as well, and for me, residents are just as important as business. And I think that we need to change the mill rate so that it reflects both. I think when we look at our long-term planning, we have millions of dollars of capital projects that are going to need to be done. And I think that we can't afford to be reducing tax rates. I'm comfortable with a 0% this year, but I don't think there's a need to reduce. We're talking about 0.7% of a reduction. It's super small. And to most businesses, it won't make a difference. But collectively, for the town, it makes a huge difference. Potentially in 10 years, that's $700,000. And for us, that's a new sewer pipe or something that needs to be done. And I think we need to be thinking long-term when we're talking about our budget. So I'm in support of the friendly amendment.
Councilor Peebles.
Thank you, Mayor. For myself as a business owner, I find that I care a lot more about safety, especially this time of the community. When I talk to different business owners, a lot of the things that you hear is not about my taxes being so high. It's what can we do about the crime and stuff that we're seeing in the community. And so that pressure tends to come back to council. So one thing, I got a question for Kevin actually. How much would this work out to be for the average business, if you have that number?
The total would be about $125 for the average business that is valued at $852,000.
So with that being said, I'm in favor of the friendly amendment as well.
Councilor Dodds, do you have something you'd like to say?
I am as well in favor of the amendment. I agree with what Councilor Wheeler had suggested.
So I guess Mr. Gamana can decide if he would like to accept the friendly amendment or not.
I would like to have a vote on the motion as presented, and if it is defeated, then we can go for another motion.
I believe that we'd have, the bylaw would then be defeated if the motion is defeated. So we'd have to look at someone redrafting the bylaw, bringing it back at a future meeting somehow.
Okay, Councilor Butts.
It's that rigid.
I'm sorry.
It's that rigid that we can't debate and go back and forth to come to a motion that we agree on.
You can consider this, if Councilor Gamana is going to maintain the motion that the way it is, and if it were voted against, then the bylaw would be defeated, and we'd be looking at bringing it forward. The other option is an amending motion.
And so that's my question then. Could, instead of offering a friendly amendment, you simply offer an amendment, which we would debate, approve, and then that would change the original motion, which we would then vote on?
That's correct.
So he's,
So he's denied his friendly motion, or friendly amendment. Could I now make a motion or for an amendment to his motion?
Councillor Butts.
I would like to amend Councillor Gavanna's motion to reflect the change in business mill rates. That would be 0 overall, reflecting the increase on the town side and the decrease in the school side, if that's sufficient for legal purposes.
Is that sufficient for Kevin's bylaw amendment?
So just to clarify, we'd be looking at a 0% overall, not just on the municipal side. Yes?
Sorry, so, yeah, so it would be the amendment that has been proposed would see that the commercial and residential taxes be assessed similarly.
I just wanted to be certain that Ms. Bijou was able to capture the motion, if she can maybe perhaps read that back to ensure we've got what we need.
Sure. So the motion is that Councillor Butts moved to amend Councillor Gavanna's motion to reflect a change in the business mill rate. That would be 0 overall, reflecting an increase on the town side due to a reduction on the school requisition. Absolutely. So the motion on the floor is that Councillor Butts moved to amend Councillor Gavanna's motion to reflect a change in the business mill rate. That would be 0 overall, reflecting an increase on the town side due to a reduction on the school requisition.
Yeah, I don't think the last part would be accurate, given that it's just different treatment.
Okay.
Or two different.
I think let's stop it at 0.
Okay.
Just so everyone is in agreement that, so with the education requisition going down, we have the opportunity to hold property taxes, as you see on your bill, the same year over year, but the town would be increasing our overall mill rate to bring in more revenue. And so the original motion was to see that the residential mill rate be increased just to recognize the increased revenue to the town, where the commercial mill rate would not be increased, such that the average commercial property would see a slight reduction in their taxes. The amending motion is to see that the commercial mill rates be increased such that they would see a 0% increase overall in their taxes, but the town would see an increased revenue due to the fact that the Alberta education requisition became lower. So everyone understands what it is. Okay. So is there any debate on the motion? Councillor Butts.
Yeah, so Your Worship, I certainly agree with you that I want our town to be open to business and pro-business, and I agree that keeping business taxes from growing and possibly decreasing is a worthy goal that would benefit our community. However, I want to do that from a more holistic perspective of looking at where we use our business taxes to subsidize residences and see if there are ways where we can shift that burden, the overall burden, more towards those who use the services. And I think we need further research to understand to what extent businesses are paying higher taxes compared to our peers and they aren't, and whether or not it's based on profitability or not, or historical profitability, and who these property taxes would impact. At the end of the day, it's $125 for the average business, which is $10 a month, and that's enough money to make $6,000 to $6,000 of additional revenue that could go towards safety or crime prevention or all sorts of different things that the community is asking for. Local business leaders talk to me and they say, what are you doing for the money I'm paying? They're not, oh, cut my taxes. They say, get me better services. That's what I hear, especially when we've seen things like crime increase. So as Councilor Wheeler said, $125 isn't a lot per business, but collectively it's enough that we can do something together for improvements. But again, I agree with you, Your Worship, that we need to look at our structure overall. So a token, minuscule, almost non-existent tax cut for businesses, to me doesn't mean that we're not open for business. I think that being consistent on both residential and business side, given the change in school requisition, I think that's what justifies the amendment I propose.
So, the beauty about taxes is that every year we just increase it 1 or 2% or 3% because it's such a minuscule amount of money, and so it has a big impact on our on the town's finances, but it has little impact on the residents or businesses paying it. But every year when you increase 3%, over 20 years, that little amount does accumulate to a very substantial amount. And so that's why I have a hard time swallowing the agreement that a little amount here, it doesn't matter. It's a death by a thousand cuts, whatever you want to call it. And so and that's the beauty about compounding interest, actually. And that's what I'm hoping will fund my retirement is compounding interest. But so I don't really buy the argument that having a small amount is, such a small amount, $10 a month, like who can afford it? Of course anyone can afford $10 a month, but over the long term, next year it'll be $20 a month, the next year after that it'll be $30 a month, and then soon you'll be, 20 years from now, you're paying an extra $2,000 a month for your taxes. And the other thing is so we have this increase in, or a decrease in the requisition from the education side. So next year when the requisition goes up, are we willing to reduce our taxes to make up for that difference? That is a question I will ask anyone that's in favor of it. If the requisition for education goes up next year, are we willing to reduce taxes? Councillor Butts.
That's something I have thought about, Your Worship, given the situation, and I'm certainly open to it. I think if we look at how we're taxing our residences and businesses overall and how that plays into the Alberta school requisition, then I think that discussion can lend itself to potentially offsetting those increases if they occur. And if they decrease again, then maybe next year we can do a zero again and still get more revenue. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm certainly open to it.
I appreciate your diplomatic answer, but I know next year when there's money floating in front of us, we're going to rapidly grab at it again. So, so is there any other debates on the amending motion? So, everyone, no other debate, no other thoughts on this? Okay. So, I'm not going to recite the amending motion because I don't quite remember what it is, but word for word. So I will ask the question. We have a motion in front of us. All in favor? We're voting on the amended motion. So
You don't vote on the amendment before the amended motion.
You're voting on the amending motion.
So we're voting on Councillor Butts' motion.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So everyone knows what motion we're voting on.
3 times now.
Councillor Butts' motion. All in favor? All opposed? All right, so I don't believe we can move any further in our budget discussions because the numbers have to be changed.
But we do still have to do the original motion.
We have to deal with the original motion as well.
Okay.
And then I would suggest that a motion be passed identifying a time. Like I would suggest a motion be passed to adjourn this meeting, and in the same motion identifying a time that this meeting would reconvene later today. I've spoken with Mr. McMillan. He's suggesting 2 p.m., which would enable him enough time to complete the documentations to address the change in the direction from council.
So, what do we...
I stand corrected. He needs 2 hours. So
Probably 11:30 we could have to do to deal with the original motion?
So now that the original motion has been amended, you're going to vote on the amended motion.
Okay, so we voted in favor of amending it,
Yes.
and now we will vote. All right, so now the, it's being videotaped, so. All right, so now that we have voted on amending the motion, we're now voting on that motion to be amended. All in favor? All opposed? And so that is the first reading of that bylaw. Will we now change the numbers and then go through second and third reading at 11:30? Okay. So I will call to adjourn this meeting at 9:35 a.m. and we will reconvene at 11:30 if that is sufficient time for administration to prepare the documentation. I hope so, yes. All right, we will call our special meeting of council back to order at 11:31 a.m. And we will pick up where we left off on 3.3 with the mill rate bylaw 2018-6-F. And so, Mr. McMillan, did you want to speak to this again as there has been some changes?
Yes, in the RFD itself, there's been no changes. On the bylaw, there's been a few numbers that have changed in the preamble as well as down below as it pertains to non-residential and multi-residential machinery and equipment and whatnot. But numbers were just changed to reflect the new revenue requirements to recoup, and it is good to go as is if council wants to consider it for second reading.
All right, so any questions of administration at this point? Then I will ask for a motion on decision item 3.3. Councillor Wheeler.
Right. I move that council approve the proposed 2018 financial operating and capital budgets as presented for the town of Drayton Valley.
I think we're mill rates.
Oh. Okay. Which paper is that on?
It'd be part of the,
Page 12 of 21.
Oh, that's way shorter. Sweet. I move that council give second reading to mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F as now presented, as amended. Thank you.
All right, is there any debate on the second reading? Okay, so all in favor? All opposed? And that is carried. And so now we ask for a motion to allow council to give third and final reading. So this is just to consider the third and final reading. So would someone like to make a motion? Councillor Wheeler.
I move that council consider giving third and final reading to mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F as amended.
Okay. Councillor.
Clarification. This needs to be unanimous. Correct.
So is there any debate on this? So all in favor of allowing the third and final reading of the bylaw? All in favor? All right. So this allows us to have a third and final reading. Is there a motion that's in Councilor Wheeler?
Thank you. I move that council give third and final reading to mill rate bylaw 2018-06-F as amended.
All right. And I will ask that the vote is recorded on the third and final reading of this bylaw. So all in favor of the third reading of the bylaw as amended? All in favor? All opposed? The recording secretary. bylaw has been approved. So now we are on to item 3.4, proposed 2018 public health and welfare budget. And I believe Councillor Cabana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to item 3.4, the proposed 2018 budget for public health and welfare, I would like to declare peculiar interest and that I must abstain from any discussion or voting on the element of the 2018 budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so item 3.4, proposed 2018 public health and welfare budget. Mr. Millen?
As pursuant to the MGA section 242 and 245, council may adopt an interim operating budget part of the calendar year, and council must adopt final operating capital budgets for each calendar year. Accordingly, the proposed 2018 final operations summary for public health and welfare is presented for council's consideration. While the operating revenues of $1,947,852, operating expenditures of $2,304,709, for a net deficit of $356,857.
All right, is there any questions of administration on this? Is there someone that would like to make a motion? Councillor Dodds.
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the proposed 2018 final operating budget for public health and welfare as presented for the town of Drayton Valley with operating revenues of $1,947,852, operating expenditures of $2,304,709, with a net deficit of $356,857.
All right. Is there any debate on this? So the motion is to accept as presented. All in favor? That is carried. We now move to 3.5, proposed 2018 Parks and Recreation budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on this. I know I will need to step out for a portion of this. Are they separated, or do you need to step out of the entire piece for this? Because I see it is distributed separately, but will I need to step out on this whole issue in this case?
No, I think you just need to step up the approval of this section at that point. It becomes close and the overall.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, with that said, with respect to item 3.5, with Total Works Fitness Center, I will declare a pecuniary interest that I must abstain from any discussion or voting on this matter.
So again, I will call on Mr. McMillan.
Yes, Pursuant to the MGA Section 242 and Section 245, the council may adopt an interim operating budget for part of the calendar year and must adopt operating capital budgets for each calendar year. Accordingly, the proposed 2018 final operation summary for Parks and Recreation is presented for council's consideration, including operating revenues of $2,413,386, operating expenditures of $3,909,367, for a net deficit of $1,495,981.
Great. Any questions of administration at this point? Councillor Butts?
Just to clarify, this is, do all of these items fall under the cautionary rule of
No, largely they do, but there are, as far as what changed, the Omniplex, the MCC, the pool, and a small portion of our parks budget, but a large percentage of our parks budget does not fall under this, as well as a couple other minor recreation expenditures.
Councillor Wheeler?
It's not a formality question, but I thought this piece had total works removed. So why is Councillor Peebles in conflict, or this piece doesn't?
This includes total works, that's part of the overall. We don't split up total works individually on the overall operating budget, so it's all prudent to just split up the entire Parks and Recreation budget as in and of itself. So it's not provide that information.
All right. Any other questions of administration? Someone like to make a motion on this? Councillor Dodds?
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the proposed 2018 final operating budget for Parks and Recreation as presented for the town of Drayton Valley, with operating revenues of $2,413,386, operating expenditures of $3,909,367. I don't know why I keep messing that up, and with a net deficit of $1,495,981.
All right, any debate on that? So the motion is to accept as presented, so all in favor? That is carried. And that brings us to item 3.6, our final item, proposed 2018 general operations and capital budget. One final time, I'll ask Mr. McMillan.
You get to hear the chorus one more time. Pursuant to the Municipal Government Acts in Section 242 and 245, council may adopt an interim operating budget for part of the calendar year, and council must adopt operating capital budgets for each calendar year. Accordingly, the proposed 2018 final operating capital budgets are presented for council consideration. Since approval of the 2018 interim budget, council and administration have reviewed services and projects to ensure that they are appropriate for the community and fiscally responsible. The attached proposed 2018 final operating capital budgets reflect the town's consideration of the current economic climate and impacts of the broader community. Rather than just reciting numbers, we do have a brief PowerPoint that kind of goes over this, so I'll speak to that. The operating budget side, we have operating revenues of $14.8 million, gross taxes of $16.15 million, of which school and seniors requisitions make up $4.24 million, leaving us total revenues of $26.75 million for 2018. Operating expenditures total $22.1 million, debt repayment of $1.1 million, and leaving transfers to the reserves total of $3.49 million, for a total expenditures of also $26.75 million. The capital side, we're looking at total capital budget of $11.1 million, $10.1 million, sorry, of which this is funded by $5.66 million in grants, donations, and others, $2.08 million by the town, and $2.36 million that is expected to be borrowed in debentures. So overall, on the operating side, we're looking at revenues budgeted to be up 2.7%, or about $710,000. Our gross tax revenue remains relatively flat, while sales and user charges account for most of the increases, that being on the water sewer side of things. Back to the taxes, our gross taxes are only going up about 41,000, but our net tax is going up about 222,000, as we discussed earlier during the mill rate discussion. On the expense side, we're looking to be down 5.9%, or about 1.39 million. About half of this comes from salaries, and the rest comes from things like repairs and maintenance, contract services, and various other contingencies. Basically, overall, we're going to be running a larger operating surplus than we have in prior years, therefore building reserves through increased operating surpluses, hopefully to be spent on future capital improvements and to fund ongoing operations. On the capital side, we're basically focused on maintaining and upgrading existing facilities and infrastructure, strategic investment in the future, and maximizing impact through partnerships and leverage to maximize granting opportunities and to bring outside money into the community as much as possible. So finally, kind of going back to the fee schedule that we approved earlier, but from the interim, there weren't any major changes other than the Early Childhood Development Center enrolled in the Early Learning and Child Care pilot program run by the province to provide flexible child care for parents of $550 per month for full-time care, or $25 a day for drop-in. This program is expected to run through April 2019 currently. And so that was the major change in the fee schedule, and basically our overall user fee approach is to maintain affordability for services, but where practical, achieve cost recovery. That is it. My spiel.
All right, is there any questions of the administration? Councillor Butts?
Just looking at this motion here.
Sorry, I forgot about, thank you, Councillor. Just looking at the motion here, it shows transfers to reserves of 3.486 million. But roughly 1.8 of that will be used for the previously funded and operating fund capital expenditures, is that correct?
$2,078,982 will be used for previously funded operating funding and funded by reserves.
And that comes from that? 3.486.
Yeah, this 3.486 only really kind of serves for the balance of the operating fund. 3.486 is just our operating surplus.
So if everything went exactly as proposed here, we would have roughly 1.5 or 1.4 million added to our net reserves at the end of the year.
That's right.
And how much of that relates to water and sewer?
If you give me a minute, I can calculate that. I don't have it.
Is there any other questions of administration? Words on that? Councillor Peebles.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say to you guys, and I know it's a little early because we haven't voted on it, but thank you guys so much for all your work on this. I know new council coming in, you're thinking, what the heck do these guys want? What are they trying to do? You guys have been great through this whole process. And Kevin, even as you're still searching for numbers, and we have an accountant that asks you questions that I don't understand, I appreciate your grace through this process as well. And especially our acting CAO, thank you so much for holding our hand through this process as you were thrust into it. That's about it for the right now.
Based on my back of the napkin math, we'd be looking at about an operating surplus from water and sewer of about 2.5 million, and capital expenditures of about 0.4, so we'd be looking at 2.1 million would be attributable to water and sewer. 2.1.
Thank you. All right. Is there someone that would like to make a motion on this? Using Councillor Butts. I move that council approve the proposed 2018 final operating and capital budgets as presented for the town of Drake Valley, with operating revenues of $14,845,001, taxes gross of $16,151,269, school and seniors requisitions of $4,241,996, for a total revenue of $26,754,304, operating expenditures of $22,134,787, debt repayment of $1,133,095, transfers to reserves of $3,486,422, for total expenditures of $26,754,304, and capital expenditures and financing of $10,105,021.
Thank you for that, and I'd like to kind of echo Councillor Peebles' thoughts, and thanks administration for all your hard work on this. I know it wasn't an easy process, and even down to this morning, it's never as straight as you hope it will be, but I think at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with the budget that's passed. Obviously, if it was me individually, there might have been some slight changes, but I think for having 7 people having to debate and decide on this budget, I think it's a good balance of doing positive changes for our community while still planning for the future. And so, I can't say that there's anything in this that I'm really upset against. And so I think it's great for our community, and it's next year we will continue to build on the progress that we've made this year, and again continue building for the future, and making sure that Drake Valley is a great community to live in. So, Councillor Dodds.
I would just like to say thank you for all your hard work, for all your time, and for the amendments and everything. And yeah, I'm happy overall with the budget as well. Thank you so much.
Councillor Gabbana.
Yeah, I would like to echo the same sentiment as previous councillors. Thank you very much for putting up with us, going back and forth. And I'm very happy with the budget. I'm happy that we are putting money into reserves. The year of fiscal responsibility, we've shown that we are achieving that with that as well. Thank you very much.
All right. So with that, Councillor Butts.
I just want to comment on the budget. Thank you very much, administration, for all of your hard work. I know that we asked a lot of you, and it's been a good learning process for council. And I think we'll start much earlier, of course, and it will be, I think, a smoother budget next year. Overall, my comments on the budget are that I'm very happy with it. I think it represents a good, balanced approach for both fiscal responsibility and addressing the needs that we heard from the community during the election in terms of core services and how much we are investing in the town. And if you look at the 2016-2017 spending, there are big declines, and 2018 will show a slight increase in operating expenditures, but I think we'll see a far bigger increase in a sense of the quality of the services that we're receiving as a community. And in terms of the capital budget, what I especially like about it is that it is focused on getting projects done this year that will actually happen. So, looking at previous year's capital budgets, there are a lot of things that would just carry forward for whatever reason, and I understand that there will be some carry forward next year. But council took a hard line looking at things that have maybe, or balances that have just sort of accumulated, not been put to use for whatever reason, and picking projects that we thought would serve the community well while getting done this year cost effectively. So I'm quite pleased to see this list of capital projects. And in terms of the interim budget versus the final budget, I think we spent a lot more time on the operating side of things for the interim budget, as makes sense going into the calendar year, and we, having had that base, we spent a lot more time on the capital budget this go, and I'm quite pleased with the result.
Mr. McMillan.
Sorry. I'd also like to kind of thank council as well as administration as going through this process and putting up with my endless mood swings and general tyranny. I too am quite happy with the budget. I think it's really came into shape here the last month in particular. And given our increased operating surpluses, we can kind of plan better for the future and start addressing our long-term needs and planning accordingly. So I look forward to continuing our work here going into next year and years beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Livingston?
Through the chair and all of council, thank you. As your acting CAO, I appreciate your patience with me as well as we move through this process. And I'm delighted that we've actually arrived together at a budget that this council is happy with and is proud of. And I'd like to thank all the members of administration for their hard work on this. And having a budget that aligns with your priorities is an important piece for the community, so thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion to accept the operating and capital budget as presented. All in favor? That is carried. And that is the end. And I adjourn this meeting at 11:55 a.m.